The following podcast is sponsored by Words and Pictures Comics, located at 2610 Center Street, number 6. Words and Pictures is your one-stop shop for vintage back issues and cutting-edge graphic novels. Awesome service, great shop. Check them out. Welcome, everyone, to episode 249 of Just Joshing. I am your host, Joshua Pentalaresco. I write stuff and podcast too. Today, Dean Wells joins the podcast. I met Dean at Creative Inc. He was the moderator to my panel, and I knew we'd get along because I mentioned comic books when it came to dialogue, and we actually gave each other a high five. And you know, when we can connect on comic books, you can have a heck of a conversation, and me and Dean do just that. Dean, it was an awesome... I know he's an awesome teacher, just based on just how we the panel worked out, but also he's a really good writer and a good dude, and we had a really great chat. So I can't. Before we get to that, a couple things. The winner for the Marvel Comics Shi'ar, the complete rise and fall of the Shi'ar Empire, is Virginia Rico. Congratulations, Jen. You won. Yeah, thanks for entering. I literally, and it was a pleasure. Words and Pictures thanks you. I will contact you later this week, and I will deliver your book to you. And this week's giveaway is going to be Astro City Victory by Kurt Busiek and Brent Anderson. This is Astro City. Astro City is like one of the best comics in literature. Kurt Busiek is somebody I would love to interview someday. He's an amazing writer, and he's created an amazing world. And I'm telling you guys, you should go check this out now. So Words and Pictures is giving me Astro City this week to enter. Put your name in the mailing list with the link below in the descriptions. Just click on the link or copy paste and put your email in there. I will not use it for any kind of advertisement. This is just simply a way for me to have entry and, just for the purposes of giving it away. I will never, ever, like I said, use this for any nefarious means. It's just my way of keeping track of who's entering. So all you got to do is put your name in, and that'll be it. All right, guys, let's get to that conversation now, shall we? Are you ready?
Yep.
So, if you have anything incriminating you'd like to say, make it good.
All right, well, I'll give that one some thought.
Yeah. Well, we're recording, we're live. I figure don't settle for the little stuff, right? You go for the big stuff, or you go home.
Big stuff, incriminating big stuff.
You have to compete with the 16-year-old. She's given me the best answer so far. She was a pop singer that I interviewed on there.
Yeah.
So I go, what'd you do? I took everything in the world and I patented it, and it's all mine now. That was her incriminating thing on the podcast. It's that was actually really good. It was big, yeah. So she owns everything. So besides that,
there you go.
Yeah.
Incriminating. I don't know if it's incriminating, but it's unusual in that I sold a television pilot when I was 20.
That is really unusual, actually.
Yeah.
Very hard to do.
Unproduced. The streets of Hollywood are littered with unproduced scripts, but I did it. So
that's impressive. How did that happen?
In context, it was back in the 70s, and everybody was looking for the next Happy Days.
Oh, okay.
So anything that had to do with kids, by kids, about kids, people were grabbing them up right and left. I mean, my script was garbage. I can admit that, but it fit the demographic. And so it was bought. No,
something I realized about 10 years ago was it's not always about being good. It's about being with the right place at the right time for the right kind of demand.
It is.
Right.
It's subjective. Flukes are involved. Right place, right time. Who you know. We don't like to admit that, but who you know is important.
Oh yeah, no, it is.
Yeah. And there's just so many different factors. Yeah. And I was right place, right time.
But I think maybe this is to your credit, right? Because the other thing I've learned is that opportunities create opportunities.
They do.
Right. And if you're willing to embrace the opportunity in front of you, even if it goes south, which sounds like the script did eventually go south at some point, right? It led to other things because it gave you a kind of a credibility. Hey, you did you sold an unproduced script. So what else do you got, right?
Right. Yeah, it did lead to other things. It was actually not a good experience, and it kind of turned me off from the creative thing for a while. And I really had to think about what it was I wanted, what I wanted to do, how I wanted to go about doing it. So it was a while before I started venturing out into the creative fields again. But by that point, I was doing things completely different. And so that path did lead me to where we are today. So it was a difficult period. I don't regret it, because one step does lead to another.
Well, you can't regret where you came from, because it made you who you are today.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. I got the opportunity to work for an author, a hero of mine, he was an author and an illustrator. It didn't go well, and I had to go through I went through a really hard period particularly after that, when that was over.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, I think you're paying the price for chasing your dreams. Sometimes you have to dance with the darkness when it's over, right? And I did. I don't regret it, though. I mean, at the end of the day, he was one of my heroes, and not many people get that kind of opportunity in their lives.
No.
But the other part about it too is I wouldn't be who I was after going through all those ups and downs.
It's the Dark Knight. It's Joseph Campbell's Dark Knight of the Soul.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey, and the writing classes I teach, I focus a lot on the hero's journey, and it's just amazing to me that not only is that a guide for writing, it's a guide for life.
Absolutely.
It is a guide for life, and if you could look back upon your own life and see it following those steps,
absolutely,
we are all living our own hero's journey.
Absolutely. I realized what the hero's journey is ultimately about is family. That's actually what it's all about when you sit there and think about it, whether it's Peter Parker, whether it's Luke Skywalker, whether it's, Aragorn, like Aragorn, right? Whether it's, no matter what you're looking at ultimately is how family relationships, good and bad, set legacies for the next generations. And with the and we all want the same things ultimately. We were looking for where we come from, so we can figure out where we're going.
Yeah.
Right. I think we all relate to that.
I believe that as well, and I think so many people right now are so focused on the here and now. Particularly with the ease in which we can communicate with anybody in the world in the here and now. I think some of us are losing sight of the fact that we are building the road to the future.
Oh, absolutely. Day by day, bit by bit. I look at the future kind of like I write science fiction, and one of the things I'm looking at is we live in an era now where I sometimes truly believe it's literally an era of imagination right now, because there's not a whole lot. I'm talking to you on a phone that could very easily be considered a tricorder. There's not that much difference, not that much difference anymore.
No.
All right. We are replicating. We are making things out of plastic, like literally almost from nothing. And we're using molecules, we're shaping them, but it's impressive. Our technology is getting smaller. Like we're going into nano, pico. It's incredible what we're on the small scale where we're going for. On the big scale too, I see things on YouTube about robotics development and artificial intelligence, where that's going. A million different ideas, and then there's the practical side of things too. You see people coming up with new ways to grow food on their own, solving problems day in and day out. We actually, if we really sit there and think about that, we're living right now in a renaissance, in one very real way.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's just it's well, when I was a kid in the 1970s, the term future shock was big. I mean, there was a whole book.
Yes, I've seen that book.
Future Shock.
Yeah.
And it was basically saying that we are, and again, counting this in the 1970s, that we in the 1970s were reaching a point very quickly where things would start to change so fast that people couldn't keep up with it. We were outpacing ourselves, and we are there now.
Oh yeah.
So that was kind of my long preamble to saying we are living in the time of future shock.
Yeah.
Now, what was predicted, in the 1970s.
So, and it's not going to slow down.
It is not going to slow down.
So which means now in one very real way now we live. So one of my favorite Star Trek Next Generation episodes is the last one. It's one of the coolest series finales I've ever seen. You were completely in the dark in a really fun way the whole way through to the very end. But my favorite part is the last conversation Q has with Picard in that scene. It's not about charting stars or nebula, it's about seeking out the possibilities of what existence is all about. Rob Sawyer writes about consciousness all the time, but I don't think he's far off in this sense. We are in an era now where it's possible to be or do or become anything we desire. Now, there's obviously going to be consequences to everything we do, but we're coming to a stage where people are going to be experimenting with that more and more and more and more and more. So 10 years from now, 20 years from now, if I want wings, I might be able to get wings, right?
Yeah. What you were talking about earlier about living in a renaissance now, it's very similar to in the late 1800s, the scientist adventurer who wasn't affiliated with a government or a university or a think tank. He was just a guy tinkering in his garage or in the carriage shed and coming up with these wonderful things, and that's where we are today.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where we are today.
Well, because the information, okay, I taught myself audio watching YouTube. YouTube University is a very real thing in a lot of ways. The information is just there if you're willing to look for it. Reading the instruction manual. There's lots of instruction manuals you can read now. Like that. Like the knowledge at our fingertips is mind-boggling. The generations that are coming up after us, they have more knowledge, like in that one way, way smarter than we ever were. That the access to the information they have is none of us can keep up with that. The only thing we really have over them at this point is wisdom. That's because we've been around longer and we've fucked up things a little bit more than they have at this point.
That's right. We fucked up enough to learn from it. Hopefully we've learned. Learn from said fuck ups.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Hopefully. Yes.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's kind of where we're at, right? Is so, which leads to some really very big questions. Right? What does credibility mean anymore? I mean, in terms of, I'm not saying there's no value being taught, but I mean, if I can learn, and does it matter how I learn knowledge anymore?
Right. Something that I talk about quite a bit with the students in my class. I teach.
Absolutely.
I teach a writing class part-time. I'm not an accredited teacher. I'm just sharing what I know. I'm passing it along. I tell the people in my class that the notion that you have to have a degree in order to write is bullshit.
Yes.
The notion that you need an advanced degree to write is fucking bullshit. Just do it.
Yeah.
And that is applying more and more and more to so many fields.
Yeah. There's only a handful of fields I really feel like you really need to go through that kind of training. And then they're incredibly intricate fields. You really should. Right. But I mean, but there's a lot of just skills, like the same learning, like the learning skills, whether you're writing or whether you're learning how a martial art or whether you're learning, how to use tools or whether you're learning how to operate a computer program. They're not that different.
No.
It's just putting in the time and effort and being willing to let yourself fail.
Sure.
Right.
Particularly with more and more people going to online university or just getting knowledge from the internet on their own, as opposed to going through a formal accredited process.
Yeah. By the way, this isn't a knock. Like teachers, I think, in some ways, are more useful now. Again, coming back to wisdom, it's not. I always thought like the best teachers in the world were not the ones that necessarily taught the knowledge, but had the wisdom and the wisdom to teach what wisdom they learn to share their experiences, and the compassion to be there for when your students actually need you. And I think that's what separates a good teacher from a bad one.
Well, one of the things I stress is that I tell the people in my class, and because it's community college, you get a wide variety of age ranges. You get people right out of high school, you get people who are retired, and everything in between. So I always say what we're going to talk about is the things that your writing teacher never taught you, what you never learned in school. Creative writing class. We're going to talk about the things that they didn't bother teaching you, the things that are actually important. Not just the skill of what a verb is, what a noun is, what a sentence structure is. We're going to talk about the whole thing kind of more holistically.
Yeah, which I kind of wish was done at a younger age, because I think almost all of us would be better for it.
Mm-hmm.
But it is what it is.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And by and large, your creative writing teacher is not a writer
No.
themselves. They're just teaching they're just repeating what they had been taught. What they had been taught. What they had been taught. And so,
which actually goes back to something I was once taught in an ancient history class in my high school, which was you could look at like some of the most advanced, like he goes one again, probably should have to toot their own horns, but also just because it's actually I think legit. You're only as good as the teachers you learn from.
yes.
Right, and the best periods, the most advanced periods in times had the best teachers. Right, when you look at the Greeks, like Aristotle, Plato, they were taught by Sophocles. When you look at like the Renaissance, you had Da Vinci, Michelangelo. You had some of the most brilliant Galileo. You had some of the most brilliant minds shaping generations that followed them.
Yeah.
Right, and that led to prosperity, to the likes of which has not been really, although now kind of being replicated now, but in a completely different way. Instead of the institutions teaching people to properly do it, people are refiguring out how to learn it, and they're sharing knowledge today.
Right.
Which I think is probably the coolest thing about today.
Mm-hmm. My number 2 writing rule. I only have 2 rules.
Yeah.
My number 2 writing rule is steal from the best.
Yes.
Seek out the best. What do they do? Replicate what they do. How do they do it? And it doesn't matter what field it is. Find the people who are doing it the best, whatever that is. Learn from that. Replicate that. Copy that. And in doing that, you will come to find your own voice.
Absolutely.
You can learn by studying how somebody else does it successfully and trying to replicate that yourself. Your own way, your own method will bubble up to the top. So it isn't really stealing as much as seeking out and taking from those people everything that you possibly can and making it your own.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also about what works for you. Not everything that works for me is going to work for you, and vice versa. We're two different people, right, with 2 different goals and agendas. Mm-hmm. But I can learn from you. Like I was listening last night, like how you moderated a panel. I really dug how you made it very interactive from the very beginning. I never thought to do that when I was monitoring my own panel, for example.
I like that. I've sat on panels where the moderator was very rigid and laid out exactly how it was going to be, and audience members, please hold your questions to the end. And I would think that, well, that's not helpful.
No.
Because you might have a question for something that was said right now, and by the time the end of the panel, the conversation has gone completely different direction, and who's going to say, well, let's go back to what was talked about 20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Talk about it now.
Yeah.
Here and now, have a conversation back
Which
and forth.
I thought was actually really smart. Like next time I moderate a panel, I'm going to steal that, right?
Yeah.
Because it.
Yeah, and just the panel format in this type of venue, here we're in Creative Inc., where an audience member can sit and listen to a panel of experts. That's in air quotes, of course.
Yes.
But everybody has their own way of doing things, and the panelists are not going to be in agreement on this is how it's done. They're going to share on what works for them, which in turn gives the person in the audience that comfort level saying, well, I don't have to do it like the book said.
Yeah.
I can find my own way, and maybe in listening to 5 or 6 different perspectives, I can find something in that resonates with me, as opposed to sitting in a class where you're only hearing the perspective of one teacher. This way you're getting exposure to a lot of different opinions, and one of them may indeed work for you, or at least one of them will plant a seed.
Yeah. I actually just had a really wonderful thought. I think it's what teaching and like these panels have in common.
Right.
It's not even really, it's not about the knowledge we're giving. What we're trying to do is we're trying to give people permission to do.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Specifically, giving people permission to fail.
Yes.
It's okay if your rough draft is crap.
Yeah.
That's okay. You've got something on paper that you can improve, that you can make better. You can't make anything better unless you had a first draft.
Mm-hmm.
And people say, well, my first drafts are terrible. Fine.
That's the majority of writers.
Yeah. They second guess themselves. They they start listening too closely to the editor voice in their head. It's like, well, there's a time and a place for that editor's voice, but there's also a time and a place for the creator's voice. Let the creator speak first.
Yeah.
Then go back and edit.
Actually, one of the things I actually handwrite my first drafts.
So do I.
Yeah, and the reason I handwrite them actually is for one other simple reason. The goal of my first draft is to have as much fun with it as I can. I'm going to put as much crazy stuff as I can put in here as possible. I don't really care if it makes sense right now. It doesn't need to, right? Hopefully it has a little structure because I want to make sure that there's a story there. But I will just throw as much, like it's almost like I'm throwing spaghetti on my wall, and I'm going to see what sticks with me when I get to draft 2. I'm be like, okay, now when I actually start typing up.
Yeah.
I get to my 0.5 draft, I go, okay, editor voice, you're on a little bit, right? And then we'll see what works, we'll see what doesn't, and we'll see what's still fun.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And then draft 2, then again, the editor slowly takes more and more over as the drafts continue, right? But the first one, man, have fun. Remember you were in kindergarten, you had like these marble and paint, and you just let it roll around?
Yeah.
That's what the first draft is. Let the whole thing roll around and see what shape and color comes out of it.
For many people, writer's block is trying to edit as you go. You're trying to get it perfect as you go, and you stymie yourself, and you can't move forward because, well, this isn't the right word. I don't know what the right word is. Who cares what the right word is? Just get a word down, make it pretty later.
Yeah. Also, perfection is, I think, the enemy of every artist.
Yes.
It is. It's not even in just any draft. Hopefully I've gotten wiser. I'm still saying I'm going to not pretend I'm that wise. But one of the things I realize is it's not about perfection.
No.
It's about progression. There's a big difference. Can I make it better? Yes. Right. But when it gets to the point where it's forest and trees, and the editors have already done their say, and they've done their co-piling. Don't spiral down into this abyss here. We're good. Then get to pour some trees. Could it still be better? Sure. I can't make it any better anymore at this point in time. Time to do. It's done. At least for me, it's done. Mm-hmm. Then do the next thing.
Yeah. That is just a cycle of doom.
Yeah.
Rewriting, trying to get it better. At some point, you have to say, "This is done now. I've done what I can." Because there isn't any story, there isn't any writer who can look back on past work and say, yeah, I could have done that differently. I could have done this, I could have done that, but I could have also been stuck in that one story forever.
Yes.
You got to let it go and move on.
Yeah, which again, I had a friend of mine on my Facebook page, which she was talking about world building. She has go deep dark rabbit hole. So I go and listen to her for like 5 minutes, like for a minute and two. Just talk. First thing I asked her, what's your story about? And when she talks about the world, I said, no. What's your actual story about? Mm-hmm. It's like you're getting in your own way. With I don't really care about this stuff right now. That stuff's cool, but we're not there. What's your story about?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And she couldn't tell me, and because she couldn't tell me, I was like, okay, here's your first step. Ignore this crap. What's your story?
And I admit that was me.
Yeah.
In the day, I am just a geek for world building, just a nerd for world building, and
worlds are cool. Worlds are cool.
Yeah. And so I would just spend an enormous amount of time, creating letter and verse about all these wonderful worlds, and I had no story to take place in them, and so. I still love world building, but I, come to that wisdom that, you need the story first.
Yeah.
The story isn't about where it takes place.
Well, I hope one day I could build a world as good as Amber. I love Roger Zelazny's Amber series.
Yeah.
It is one of the most... his writing is so concise. Like, damn near... Like, economy for words, very few people are as good as he was.
Right. Yeah.
And Amber was just a cool world. You use tarot cards to go from world to world. You're dealing with chaos, and you're dealing with like Oberon, and it's like it was beautiful and fun, and I think for me like when I do the world building stuff, I always like, is it as fun or as cool as this?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big fan of the old school. world builders like Larry Niven or Paul Anderson.
Paul Anderson is awesome.
I don't think there's a better world builder anywhere than
No.
Paul Anderson.
And what the cool thing about Anderson is Shakespeare. I love how he is such a Shakespeare nut. All his stories are riffs on Shakespeare.
Yeah.
And you know what? It works. It just
works.
damn well.
And when I was a kid growing up, that's what I read. I read Paul Anderson. I read Larry Niven, and that was my foundation.
Yeah.
I was like, this is so cool.
Every time you say Foundation, I think of the Foundation series by Asimov.
And I've never read those.
Really?
Yeah, there are surprising things that I've never seen and read. And Asimov, for whatever reason, I couldn't get into it.
You probably would enjoy. This is my suggestion. You probably enjoy his nonfiction. The reason why
I probably would.
Because the thing about him, he's actually a better nonfiction writer than he is a fiction writer. And the reason being is where Asimov really, really excels is he has this really good ability to be very concise and explains thoroughly a concept.
Well, he was a scientist.
Yeah, exactly. But most scientists look at Barry Whipper and Arthur C. Clarke when they talk about the science, the hard science. They will spend pages upon pages explaining a concept, which, again, science fiction does that. Asimov was able to do that in a page or two. You got it, right? Right. So when you read his nonfiction, right, they are some of the most efficient teaching tools I've ever read, because he was really good at explaining to a layman an expert's knowledge, and he could convey that concisely. And because of that, his nonfiction it feels like a story, but it's factual. Right?
I can see that. I can see that. Like, for instance, I love Neil Gaiman.
Yeah.
But for the longest time, I couldn't read Neil Gaiman because I couldn't get into his head. I couldn't decipher the way he wrote, his syntax, until I arbitrarily stumbled upon a collection of short stories, and somewhere in there was the Rosetta Stone that I got it in just reading him in little short bits, in short concise bits. I was able to understand where he was coming from and how he was doing it, and so now I love him. Yeah. I can read anything from him. And
it's funny. I prefer his shorts or his comics to his novels. Right, just me personally.
Yeah.
Right, and by the way, I will never ever say he's bad. He's really good at what he does. But for me, I feel he does his best work when he has about 30 pages.
Mm-hmm.
That's just like when he has 30 pages, his work is brilliant. It's beautiful. It clicks. It pops, and you're like, wow. And his kid stuff, like Emmets for Magic, is like a genius little book.
Yeah,
it's a genius little book.
Yeah.
All right, and that's where I really like Neil Gaiman. Now, when I read his novels, I like him, but unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, I read Ray Bradbury first. I read Charles DeLint first. So I always feel like when I read his novels, I'm kind of reading I'm very close to other people I really, really like.
Mm-hmm.
So he's good, but he's not them.
You can do that. You can read a writer and kind of see the literary path that influenced them before. Like, I love Joe Haldeman.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he's awesome.
Joe Haldeman. And I cannot help but see the influence that Heinlein had on a young Joe Haldeman. You see that literary heritage, that through line.
Yeah.
But I love Haldeman. Love him.
No, Haldeman's fantastic.
He was actually when I read The Forever War for the first time. I can't count how many times I reread The Forever War, just because it's so it's a wonderful story, but just the construction of it, how he puts this together as a textbook on how it's done, on how the writing is done, and that was what convinced me that I could write as well.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
That book, it had such an influence. Now, again, I grew up reading, Larry Niven and folks like that, but it was the Forever War that switched on the light in my own head that says, I think I can do this.
Yeah.
I get where he's coming from. I get his construction. I think I can do this. And so that's how I started out, trying to sound as close, trying to follow what he did as close as possible, trying to sound like Joe Haldeman as much as possible. And that was my whole formulation for my role, Steal from the Best. Try to be as good as this person. Now, my voice today is nothing like Joe Haldeman.
No.
It's my own voice. But that's where you start.
Absolutely.
You find a mentor, whether you're even in the same room with the guy, you can still be mentored by an artist's work.
Absolutely.
And that was my starting point.
Yeah, because art resonates. When it really matters to you, it resonates in ways like, for me, it was 3 people. Asimov, like I love his fiction. I still love his fiction. Ray Bradbury and Edgar Rice Burroughs.
Okay.
Right.
Well,
I love Burroughs' imagination, even though again his stories are all the same. The imagination in his worlds were super fun. Bradbury is a poetic genius. All his work is magic, and Asimov, again, he was the man in science fiction. So it was like those are the 3 I know. That's where I started. My voice is nothing like them now, but there are bits and pieces. Every once in a while, I will look at my work and say, okay, yeah, that's from there.
For me, it was Arthur C. Clarke. He was the grandmaster that most resonated with me. And there again, with people like Larry Niven, you can see the influence.
Absolutely.
You can see the influence that Arthur Clarke had on Larry Niven, and that chain of progression.
Yeah, no, and which is, like I said, it was like Asimov, Clarke, and Heinlein are pretty much the foundations of modern science fiction.
Yes.
Right. All 3 of them. So and whichever one you went with, you really couldn't go wrong. So that's just the way it is. So what are you working on now?
What I'm working on now, I have an ongoing collection of short fiction, and short, I'm talking anywhere from flash up to novella, to long novella, and everything in between. It's more than a collection. It's almost like a story, not even a series.
Is it a world like a like?
Yeah. Let me.
Yeah, sure.
I've already stumbled over myself.
Yeah. No, it's all good. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah. It's called The Clockwork Millennials, and it's a series of standalone short fiction that, when grouped together, they collectively tell a larger story that can be seen individually.
So I'm going to ask this question.
Yes.
Because we were talking comic books last night. This sounds very similar to like the very old school Silver Age.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Because the reason I bring that up is modern comics don't do this very much anymore. But Silver Age comics will set up seeds like in the first story. They may not pay off to like issue 60, depending on who the creator was, right? But I think of stuff like Jack Kirby, right? Like you'll have stuff like in 1 that'll come up like in 30 or 40. And
I love Silver Age.
Yeah.
I people poo-poo the Silver Age, and I love it.
I'll ask you the hardest question I'll probably ever ask you. Best graphic novelists of all time. These are my 3: Will Eisner, Jack Kirby, Dr. Seuss.
Okay.
Yeah. Who do you think?
Oh man.
You were a little surprised that you used Seuss in that one.
Yeah, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
But it makes sense. I liked Dave Cockrum. Well, see, I'm very visual.
Yeah.
And no matter how good a comic story is or a graphic novel story is, if I'm not digging the art, I really have to. I struggle getting through it. So, comic artists, graphic artists that I really resonated with, Dave Cockrum.
Very good. That's a good choice.
His Legion of Superheroes.
I love the Superboy Legion stuff is awesome.
Yeah. John Byrne.
Okay. Early Byrne,
Early Byrne
is fantastic.
Early Byrne.
Yeah.
Late Byrne is lazy as hell.
Yes.
Lazy.
I know. Trust me, I know some people. They've told me some stories.
And Byrne inked by Austin.
Yes.
Brilliant stuff. Once Byrne started inking his own stuff, got sloppy, and then he even stopped penciling, and he would just draw in ink, and it was just so messy and so dark and so sloppy because he had fallen into the trap of his own celebrity.
Yeah, which is something no matter how successful you become, you got to avoid. Don't believe your own press ever.
No.
Yeah.
Kurt Swan.
Oh man, yes. The Superman guy.
The definitive Superman artist for like 30 years.
Whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow is still my all-time fan.
God. Oh, I'm getting tears in my eyes when.
See, we see again. I'm a comic guy. I am a comic guy.
When Krypto attacks the Kryptonite Man.
Yeah. Okay, now me personally, my favorite of all that stuff is Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen. They're so fun. They are so fun. Every month they just didn't matter. Jimmy Olsen's doing crazy stuff and Superman helping him, or Superman's in trouble with his buddy Jimmy. Didn't matter. It was simple and it was brilliant shit.
They allowed themselves to have fun.
Exactly.
In the Silver Age, people say, "Oh, the stories were stupid." Okay, they were fun.
And to be okay, so I'm a Green Lantern guy. I've been loving Grant Morrison's Liam Sharp's current run of Green Lantern. Do you know what they're doing? They're riffing off the Silver Age. Hal Jordan, when he first came on Earth, they made him feel like an alien in his own time. But every character, every background, all the homages are to his early, like the first 60 issues of that run.
Yeah, well, that's what Jeff Johns does.
Yes.
He is Mr. Silver Age.
Absolutely.
Which I love.
I figured out who the Blackest Night villain was way before anyone else did, because I have all that Silver Age stuff. So it's like it's got to be him. It's him or it's him and him. That's it. It can only be one or the other.
Yep.
Right. So, but that's because all the fun stuff's from that era. Mm-hmm. The one series, and I know this is going to cost me a pretty penny when I finally start doing it, that I want to get from that era is Kamandi, the Last Boy on Earth. It's the one series the comic guys, the guys behind the store like. So if they really like it, they'll get rid of it, but you're paying for it.
That leads to an interesting thing about getting that, trying to find it. I have for the last many years, I have been slowly reacquiring the Silver Age comics that I had as a kid.
Oh God, yes.
And got rid of because it was just a comic.
Yeah,
You read it, it's done in one. You toss it away. And so.
What was your stuff?
Okay. This is my well, I was born in 1958.
Okay.
Aging myself. That was the year that Silver Age began, and arguably Silver Age is 58 to 68.
I would go to say 72, but
it's murky.
Yeah.
Because Silver Age was coming out and Bronze Age was coming in, and they overlapped quite a bit.
Yeah.
But for me, it was up until that point where I was 10 years old.
But you know what? And it's totally a valid argument.
Yeah.
I won't get into
What did I read back then? I read Legion of Superheroes.
Okay. Yes.
Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes.
Yes.
Adventure comics. I read Doom Patrol, original Doom Patrol.
Ooh.
I read Metal Men.
Nice. Professor Challenger, awesome.
Yeah. Teen Titans.
I have to admit the Wolfman Perez stuff I like better, but that's still not a bad run.
Yeah. I mean, it's horribly dated, but it's so much fun to read now because it was middle-aged. The Teen Titans, the original Teen Titans, was written and drawn by middle-aged men who were trying to sound like what they thought teenagers.
Which is hilarious.
It is hilarious.
Not for the reasons intended, but still hilarious.
No, it's gold. It's golden. It is such a snapshot in time, though.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It is such a snapshot in time.
I think
not what kids did, but what middle-aged people thought kids did.
Yeah, the thing about that stuff, the really interesting thing about that stuff is, comics is one of the few genres that dates itself because you see the art style, you see what's contemporary all the time. So it's always interesting. Comics are a snapshot of the times.
Yes.
More than any other any form of literature.
Right. So what I've been doing is I've been reacquiring those specific titles.
Okay.
The Silver Age specific titles. I have completed the entire run of every Silver Age appearance of Legion of Superheroes. It took me years.
Oh my God.
But I've got them all.
Dude, seriously, If you ever send me a picture of that, I might weep. That's so good.
Now
that's a good stuff.
They would make appearances, basically the main three, Lightning Lad, Cosmic Boy, and Saturn Girl. They would appear in other comics now and then, and so those peripheral things, I might not have those, but the actual their
no. The titles, the titles, the important. Their titles, the important shit.
Their story, the entire adventure run, the Superboy run. I've got all of that, so that's done now. I almost have a full run of Metal Men. I'm missing just a few.
That one's a niche one. It never was quite as popular as I think it deserved to be.
Yeah. But that's kind of why I dig it.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
These are the books that I gravitated toward when I was a kid.
No, you know what? That's cool. The only thing I'm a little surprised you don't have like a big Marvel list in there as well, because there's some that was a good Marvel era too.
Let me. I was thinking about that after our conversation last night. I was thinking.
Yeah.
I was not really into Marvel until the all new, all different X-Men.
And that makes and that era of Marvel's fantastic, top to bottom.
I was the demographic. I was the alienated teenager that the X-Men was focused on.
The original Byrne Claremont one?
Well, even before it was the new X-Men were created by Len Wein and Dave Cockrum.
Ah, okay, yeah.
I mean, Giant Size X-Men #1, which I have.
Oh wow.
Which is worth a fortune.
Yes, it is.
And I have it. It was just showing the small world of the comic industry. Storm, Colossus, and Nightcrawler were created by Dave Cockrum for the Legion of Superheroes.
Okay, that I did not know.
When he left DC for Marvel, he took those characters with him. So they never appeared in Legion because he had just created them, but he hadn't actually used them in the pages of Legion yet. So when he and Len Wein created, when X-Men was relaunched as the new all different X-Men, he just brought his creations with him. Wolverine already existed.
Yeah.
He already existed, but the core of the new X-Men, the new characters, were actually unused DC characters,
which is hilarious.
Yeah, very hilarious.
Yeah.
But so that era of X-Men, that was my doorway into Marvel at that point. There again, I was really drawn to specific artists. I started picking up Iron Man. The
Bob Layton stuff.
The Bob Layton stuff.
I met Bob actually a few years back.
Wonderful stuff.
Yeah,
it was wonderful stuff. The Bob Layton Iron Man, the George Perez Avengers.
Yes.
That run.
If you ever get, I know he's not going to be doing many appearances anymore, but if you ever get the opportunity to talk, Perez is one of the sweetest people in the industry.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
I had the hardest time reconciling how the Avengers Beast was the same as the X-Men Beast, because they were just two completely different characters, but they said it was the same guy, so okay, and I've since come to reconcile that. But
yeah, it's okay. It's comics.
It's comics. Yeah. But as a kid, going back to not reading Marvel when I was a little kid, there were no comic shops back then. You bought comics at either the corner newsstand or the drugstore with the old timey turnstiles, the spinny racks. And as a kid, I bought comics very infrequently. If my parents didn't drive me to the drugstore,
you never could get your books.
I would never get my books. So I found, and I did pick up Marvels back then, mostly Spider-Man at the time, but I found it very frustrating as a reader to pick up a Marvel reading a story that had already, because they were highly serialized, reading a story that had already started, which I had no clue as to how it started. It didn't end because it would go on to the next issue, and so I'd be reading this snapshot in time, which was cool, but it didn't give me a complete story reading experience.
Whereas when you read a lot of
DC, They were admittedly much more elementary, much more aimed at kids, but they were done in one.
Yeah.
I could pick up any DC character, have a satisfying read, a story at the beginning, a middle, and it was done. And if it was 2 or 3 months before I picked up some more comics, that was okay because
you got that story again.
I got that story again.
Yeah.
So as a kid, my allegiance was for DC.
Yeah.
Only because it gave me that storytelling satisfaction.
And also, it's really interesting because we're talking about Clockwork Millennials. You're doing shorts and flashes, and there are all these done-in-ones that probably ties back to your experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. I see my stories as comics in my head.
Yeah.
I absolutely do. And yet I can see what Stan Lee was doing as well.
No. You know what?
When because he always talked about that his stories took place in the world outside your window. That was a quote from him. But for Stan Lee, the world outside your window was New York City.
Absolutely.
Where in New York City, there was a newsstand on every corner where a kid could just walk down the block every single week and buy comics. And so the serialized format wouldn't have been a big deal.
No,
to somebody like that because you could keep it going. But somebody like me, where it was a trip, and only if Dad drove me to get to the comics, and he didn't like comics anyway, and he didn't like me buying them, so I always had to keep on the down low. It's because it was such an infrequent thing. I just couldn't get the rhythm of the Marvel comics until later.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. It makes total sense. And in the one and done, I remember that because DC would tell their stories sometimes in 16 pages, and give you a backup to boot.
Yeah, plus the fact that Jim Shooter, who wrote a lot of the Legion stories back then, he was only 16 himself.
I know, no, it was that Jim Shooter's one of the most unbelievable stories in comics because he started publishing like comics at 16, which is absurd, like from a big publisher. Right. He is, as much as creators hate him, he is a big catalyst for the Marvel creative boom in the 80s.
Absolutely.
Right? And he also, one of my favorite companies of all time is Valiant Comics, and he launched that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I love the Valiant, like especially the early Valiant stuff's fantastic, right?
Right.
And that's Jim Shooter.
Yeah. So here's 10-year-old me.
Yeah.
Reading Legion of Superheroes.
Yeah.
About kids. Written by a kid, and it just hit me at the right place at the right time.
Well, it was exactly your thing.
It was exactly my thing. So yeah. So when I started I remember clearly the very first comic that I bought with my own money, not Mom buying me it. It was Adventure Comics, Legion of Superheroes, where the Legion had been captured and kidnapped, and on the cover there was Superboy shackled to a kryptonite chain, carrying a boulder, and then there was Mon-El was behind him, shackled to a lead chain because he being a Daxamite, he was vulnerable to lead.
Yes.
And behind him was Ultra Boy, shackled to some radioactive isotope. I don't know. And I thought, oh, that's really cool.
Yes.
And yeah, the very first one with my own money. Of course, back then, you could get 3 comics for 50 cents.
Yes.
You can get 2 regular 12-cent comics plus a 25-cent giant comic.
Yes.
The 25-cent giants that had several stories in them.
My favorites of those were the Shazam ones. I love Shazam. Yeah.
I love Shazam too.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I feel me and you could probably talk comics for hours.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, yeah, I think we totally could. Unfortunately, I probably, for the sake of this podcast, we're going to probably have to wrap it up. But first off, thank you very much for doing this.
You are absolutely welcome. It's fun.
Yeah, so we'll replug what you got going on right now and how people can find you.
People can find me. Okay, yes. So not only going back to what I'm working on right now.
Yeah.
So I have that ongoing collection. Right now what I'm working on is the final story in the sequence. And so my hope is to get them combined and publish them together. All of my stories have been published in the online magazine Beneath Ceaseless Skies.
Oh. Oh, I subscribe to that. So
Okay.
yeah.
Cease the Skies. And so if you click on the tab, I think past issues.
Yeah.
There's a drop down menu, and authors, and all of my stuff is there. It's all archived there. So you just click on author, do an author search with my name on it, and all of my stuff will be there. And just for marketing purposes, I've been just going to that single source so that my stuff is together. So people don't have to hunt here and there, for my stuff. It's all together in the same place.
That's really cool. And how can people find you?
What's that?
Do you have social media or anything like that? People can find you.
I have a website. It's my name, dean-wells.com.
Yeah.
So I'm there. I'm not faithful in blogging. When things come to mind, I'll post it. I'll post my lesson plans from the classes I teach. My list of my bibliography list is there. A list of appearances, things like that.
Fair enough. Anyway.
And that was my conversation with Dean Wells. Dean has a series which currently goes through Beneath Ceaseless Skies, which is an online science fiction magazine. He regularly posts there. To go back to the very beginning, simply look up his name on the archives, start reading. Dean was an amazing guest, and Dean, thank you for being part of my show. You are welcome back anytime. I'm nearly at 250 episodes, so what's going to happen next? Well, a couple things. The Creative Ink conversations will continue with episode 253. I have something coming up in a two-parter coming up in episodes 251 and 252 that's a little bit more time pressing, so I'm going to Mike Pilgrim and Pippa Bailey are going to be my guests there, and I'm going to let them promote their latest release this way. But yeah, the next episode is actually going to be kind of me-centric, but kind of not. I get to talk about the wonderful story of how I discovered Mackenzie Cars. Mackenzie herself is the guest on my show. And hopefully by the time the episode airs, I will have an order link for Alice Zero, my next book. It's just about done. I just got to, do some fine-tuning. I'm going to probably have a lot of long days ahead of me for the foreseeable future, but it's going to be worth it. But yeah, I'm really excited about that. So the next episode's a special one, 250 episodes. Real quick, thank you everyone who's listened to this podcast, who has subscribed to it, who has told their friends, and this podcast has been an amazing ride for me so far, and 250 is just the beginning. And that will do it for this episode of Just Joshing. To support the podcast, you can do so a number of different ways. You can subscribe to the podcast. I am on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Podomatic here itself. You can subscribe there, review it, and just pass it along. Share the link and do your thing. Beyond that, my books, The Watcher, Storm Dancer, Wandering God, are currently at mirrorworldpublishing.com. On Spec currently has released an article about my interview with Spider Robinson, which is episode 220 of the podcast. 221. You can definitely check it out here on the archives that are out still for the time being. But you can also just buy an extra of the interview on Spec wherever magazines are sold. Thank you very much, Diane Walton, for giving me this opportunity. I am on YouTube as Joshua Penteloresco. I have a Facebook page, Joshua Penteloresco, author/podcaster. You can like the page, join it. I throw some really cool stuff. I give away giveaways. I show giveaways prior to anyone else seeing them. I do other cool extra stuff as well. So, anyway, thanks for listening. Stay inspired. Do your thing. Kick some ass. And I'll talk to you guys for episode 250.
Josh.